Ever since spoilers from the Winterfell set started leaking, talk of the Golden Company attacking the castle has been going around, and to a lot of people it made absolutely no sense, and I agreed. But the discussion would just not go away. And then I realized that some of the leaks that were being used as supporting evidence were being looked at in a subjective way, and that the evidence that we had against it was just simply being ignored. So for the longest time, I was completely against this idea, and I wanted to make a video explaining why. But then, before I got to making that video, people with insider information started coming out saying that the Golden Company was indeed attacking Winterfell in Season 8, and well, that's just something I couldn't argue with anymore. But I'm still making my damn video because I still want to explain the whole story behind this. And even though that insider information is probably legit, we're still not clear on why or how things will happen. So I'm going to break it down for you, showing you both the evidence for and against it. Let's go. Hats on. You're now watching Because Geek. First, let me explain to you how this whole discussion started off in the first place, so that you have the context that you need before we dive into it. Near the end of last year and earlier this year, multiple sources leaked some very interesting information about Winterfell. We got pictures and videos of a trebuchet being built and tested, a trebuchet that we later on saw placed outside of Winterfell. Another source shared pictures of a shoot going on at night where we can see some soldiers standing or walking around just outside the Winterfell walls. And then another source provided us with this video of apparently the same shoot where, even though you can't see much of the set, at one point you can hear the sounds of soldiers chanting in unison. All of these leaks combined led to the speculation that Winterfell was under siege and or under attack by an army of living soldiers. Because, well, the dead don't use siege weapons, and because the chanting in unison that we heard outside of Winterfell sounded like soldiers swinging a battering ram against the gates. Then, when people started looking closely at the weapons that the soldiers standing outside of Winterfell were carrying, they couldn't recognize what they were. They said that they were weapons that we have never seen before, so they had to belong to an army that we have never seen before as well, and the only army that fits that description that we know we will see in Season 8 is the Golden Company. And sure, without much context, that all sounds very logical. But thinking that Cersei would attack Winterfell after not only what she was told last season, but also what she said herself she planned to do, just made absolutely no sense. At first glance, at least. So I started looking into it as objectively as I could, and here is the evidence that I found against it. Starting with the obvious one that should come to mind right away if you were paying attention last season, this would be a suicide mission. Not only for Cersei's army, but for Cersei herself.
If the dead win, they march south and kill us all. If the living win, and we've betrayed them, they march south and kill us all!
Cersei's logic last season was basically this. If the northern armies combined with Dany, her dragons, and her huge army can't stop the dead, giving them a few more Lannister soldiers won't make a difference. So she might as well just stay down in King's Landing and not waste her soldiers. If the dead do defeat the North and Dany, and come south, Cersei can just leave and sail somewhere safe. It wasn't explicit in the show, but I'm assuming that after she's safe, she would have Qyburn or someone else figure out a way to defeat the dead, so that she can come back to Westeros at some point. Or maybe she's expecting that winter will end and she can come back to Westeros after the dead are gone. Either way, she didn't seem to be too worried about this. But if Dany and her northern allies do defeat the dead, yes, they will come south and attack King's Landing as well, but they were going to do that anyway, even if Cersei did help. The thing is, thanks to not wasting her soldiers against the dead, Cersei would be strong enough to put up a really good fight against Jon and Dany's weakened armies. She wouldn't only have an intact Lannister army, but they would also be joined by an intact, huge sellsword army. It obviously isn't a very honorable plan, but it does put Cersei in a really good spot. Now, sending men to kill the army that will fight the dead for her, instead of waiting until after that army has been weakened, would completely go against her plan. And like I said, it would be a suicide mission because it definitely looks more like a lose-lose situation. Now, if you're thinking of arguments against this, don't worry, I'll bring up as many as possible later. Next. The fact that we can't recognize the weapons and armor seen in the pictures is some pretty weak evidence, because these pictures were taken from so far away that everything is just blurry as hell. But still, let's take a look. Starting with the weapons. There was talk of there being some curved blades in this, and to be honest, I thought the same thing at first. But upon closer inspection, all I can see is bows. Except for maybe this one. It's really hard to say if it is a blade though. I will mention that we have seen curved blades before on Dothraki men, like this one. So it doesn't have to be from another Essos army. Let's also remember the possibility that Gendry is making new weapons for the northern soldiers. So that could also explain why we can't recognize them. We at least know for a fact that they will be modifying the Unsullied spears by adding dragonglass to their tips, so this could be one of those as well. Maybe they learned how to smooth it out, because it doesn't look very jagged. But enough about that one little stick. Like I said before, I see a lot of bows. I think this definitely looks like a bow right here, and this one does as well, but it's the style that has the ends curving outwards. I also see another bow over here. Do remember that we were shown some archery training going on at Winterfell last season, so that lines up with this picture. And I'll come back to this, but moving on to the armor now. In this picture we can't see anything. But here I see at least 2 northern looking helmets. I compared them to most of the helmets that I could find throughout the episodes, and this one looks very Bolton-like. But House Bolton doesn't exist anymore, and it also seems to be missing that pointy part at the top. So the next closest thing is a Stark helmet, which makes a lot more sense, or even a Knight of the Vale helmet. It's hard to say, but this one here could be an Unsullied helmet because of that bell shape and because of that thing at the top that sticks out very high. Or it could also be another bow. Now what I'm really trying to do here is not prove to you that all of these are good guys. I'm just trying to show you that we can't use this picture as evidence for Winterfell being under attack. It's just too ambiguous and nothing really screams sellswords to me. I don't see any weapons or armor that could belong to someone from Essos. That's not the Dothraki. But what I do see in this picture is potentially Lannister soldiers. This helmet here is the one that worries me the most, because even combined with the shape of his shirt, he looks a lot like a Lannister archer, who also have both the bows that curve outwards at the end and the ones that don't. I was hoping they could be northern archers, but the few ones that we've seen with helmets wear the normal Stark helmets, not pointy ones, so my hopes are low. But let's not forget that if there are Lannister soldiers here, that still does not mean the Golden Company is here as well. Not that Lannister soldiers would make any more sense, but you know, just saying. But yeah, to me this picture does not prove anything. Next. The chanting we hear in the video is too fast to be soldiers swinging a battering ram. I compared it to this other instance where we've seen a battering ram being swung, and you can tell it's different. The chanting is slower, which makes sense because these things are heavy and each swing should take a while. But also they say heave while they chant, and this one from the video is more of a huh, huh. The speed of it also tells me that they're most likely marching or doing any other task that requires a faster synchronized pace. Let me play them side by side for you now. Next, there were leaked pictures taken from the Winterfell set where we can see the dead body props for the men that were clearly part of the Winterfell battle, and there are no Golden Company bodies here. We know this because we can recognize all of the dead bodies, and we can especially recognize the Whites. So yeah, they were definitely fighting Whites, not the Golden Company. Next, Mark Rissman, who has been confirmed to be playing the leader of the Golden Company, Harry Strickland, was not supposed to be filming on the night when this sequence was being shot. We know that the casting call for his character was the mercenary one, and the months that that character was scheduled to film were mid-December, May, and June. Nowhere close to the end of January, when this Winterfell sequence was filmed. There shouldn't be a reason why the leader would not be sent with his army, right? We'll talk more about this later though. Next. If you look at the way the trebuchet is placed outside of Winterfell, you'll notice that the counterweight part of it is facing us. And if you know how trebuchets work, you'll know that this means the projectile would be shot in our direction, and not towards the castle. This fact, combined with another leaked video where we see Unsullied standing around a trebuchet that has a lit projectile, absolutely convinces me that these trebuchets are being used by the Unsullied against the army of the dead. and not against Winterfell. Besides, I doubt that anyone would have any time to lay siege to a castle right now with the current circumstances. Next, if you tell me that it's Euron doing this without Cersei's knowledge, I doubt that the Golden Company would listen to someone other than the one who paid them. And attacking Winterfell doesn't seem like an advantageous move for Euron. I do have some other ideas related to Euron though that I will again bring up later. This is all I've got for my case against the Golden Company attacking Winterfell. Now, moving on to the reasons why it can or why it will happen. First, if we think along the lines of Cersei would have to be mad to do this, well, we shouldn't forget the scene that was cut from Season 7 that might appear at the beginning of Season 8, where we would see Cersei having a miscarriage. If this happens to her right after Jaime leaves, I would not be surprised if she completely loses her mind and makes irrational decisions like sending the Golden Company or the Lannister army to attack Winterfell. The logic I found here is that maybe since she doesn't have an heir or anything to live for anymore, she just wants the satisfaction to at least know that she killed her own enemies, instead of letting the army of the dead do it for her. But yeah, next. Traveling times has been a huge concern for those looking into this. Thinking that Euron and the Golden Company could land in King's Landing first, then head up north, and still make it to Winterfell before the army of the dead, just doesn't sound possible. There was an easy solution to this though. Euron and the Golden Company could simply go from Essos straight to White Harbor and reach Winterfell very quickly that way. But this can't really be the case because by the time that Cersei had already sent Euron to fetch the Golden Company, her plan was to not send any armies up north, as she said to Jaime. And as it is evident from the points that I've been making in this video, what we're discussing here is that something made Cersei change her mind about her plans, and that it happened after Euron left King's Landing, because she had no reason to lie to Jaime. I mean, she had no problem revealing to him that she wasn't going to help the north, so she might as well just tell him the actual plan. But yeah, this means that she would have to wait until Euron comes back to King's Landing before giving him or the Golden Company any new orders, since I doubt that she can send a raven to find a traveling fleet. So going north from King's Landing is definitely what seems more likely to happen, even if it's still by sea. And sure, traveling times don't seem realistic here, but we already know that the writers aren't very concerned with that type of stuff anymore, based on what we saw last season. But not only that, we've also had a source tell us that we will get more illogical traveling times in Season 8, and that we'll just have to ignore them in order to enjoy the season. Whether we like it or not, and we have no reason to doubt that source, this is very good supporting evidence for the Golden Company attacking Winterfell before the army of the dead. Next. Remember I said the chanting sounded more like marching? Well, it could be the soldiers carrying the battering ram to the gate before they start swinging it. Next. I've seen people wondering why none of the northern allies would warn the north about Cersei's army coming. But what these people are forgetting is that there shouldn't be a reason for people to think that Cersei wants to attack the north, since they should all know that Cersei made a pledge to send her armies up there to help. So in their eyes, she's still doing what she said she would do. Even if it were Jaime who saw this army coming, he might still be hopeful or naive enough to think that maybe Cersei just had a change of heart and decided to help after all. Next, sure, attacking Winterfell and killing those who would be fighting the dead for Cersei so that she doesn't have to sounds very illogical. But what if the Golden Company isn't there to kill anybody? What if the only reason Cersei sends the Golden Company up there is to intimidate them and force them into surrendering hostages? Well, there was one spoiler source that shared something similar. I don't know how legitimate this source is, so I would take it with a grain of salt. But according to them, Jon will in fact give himself to the Golden Company. That source also said that the Golden Company will kill people as well, so if it is legitimate, then maybe Cersei is still acting a bit irrationally, or maybe the sellswords just wanted to bloody their swords a bit, or maybe it was Euron's orders instead of Cersei's, since he's a bit mad as well. Who knows, make of that info what you will. But we have seen pictures of Jon alone in King's Landing with Cersei, so the surrendering part could definitely be true. Also, capturing hostages is something that we have seen Euron do before for Cersei, so it is very possible to see Cersei asking him to do that for her again. Next, Mark Risman may not have been on set for that night shoot, but maybe he didn't need to be. Maybe his scenes were shot inside of the studio and will be added to that Winterfell night shoot later on in post-production. Or maybe Cersei sends only a small amount of sellswords up north, since she has so many to spare, and Harry Strickland stays behind in King's Landing with the rest of his army. This would line up with the theory that the Golden Company will land in King's Landing before going north. Next, Cersei's plot needs something to happen other than just sitting around in King's Landing with her armies, waiting for the North to be done their plot at the beginning of episode 4 most likely. If you think about it this way, it would make sense to see her use her sellsword army for something early in the season. But did we get any hints in season 7 that could tell us the direction in which Cersei's story will move? Well, yes. Glad you asked. The biggest setup of all, the secret conversation she had with Tyrion. Could this Golden Company plot be tied to the whole Tyrion betrayal thing that we keep hearing rumors about? Let's remember that Cersei does not trust Tyrion, so I doubt that she's following his instructions in any way, if he gave her any. But it is possible that Tyrion let something slip that Cersei is now using to her own advantage. And of course, if anyone finds out that this information came from Tyrion, it will mean bad news for him, which ties into the betrayal thing, without having him actually betray. Next, other than that, we did get 2 bits of potential foreshadowing, one for her miscarriage, which could drive her mad.
Our child will rule Westeros.
Our child will never be born if the dead come south.
And one for her attacking Winterfell.
Winter is here. The Lannisters are a southern army. They've never ranged this far north.
You're the military man, but I know her. If you're her enemy, she'll never stop until she's destroyed you. Everyone who's ever crossed her, she's found a way to murder.
So for some final thoughts here, we should remember that we've been through something similar before, when we read the leaks for season 7 like 2 years ago. Our reactions to the plot of capturing a white was the same thing. No one understood how it made sense, but the writers still made it happen. And to be fair, after looking closely into this Golden Company plot, it does make a bit more sense than the capture of the white, at least. We'll just have to, again, ignore traveling times in order to enjoy it. But let me know what you think in the comments. You can watch more sleuthing videos right here, or more prediction videos right here. If you'd like to join my Patreon, that would be greatly appreciated and rewarded. But clicking on that subscribe button means a lot to me as well. And that bell. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like if you liked it, and I will see you in the next one!